Hello, everyone, and welcome to What a Night, part of the 90 Min Podcast Network. As ever, we're here to break down the good, the bad, the ugly, and the beautiful in another 24 hours with Spurs, but also to look ahead to the North London derby. What really, whether you like it or not, regardless of where we are in the table, for every Spurs fan, is still the biggest game of the season. And we're coming into this one in some lovely form. Here to help me break it all down, Hunter Godson. All right, mate?
Yeah, all good, mate. How are you?
Yes, very well. Very well. Like, we've just spoken about this off air, but last night it had this kind of really nice regulation win feel to it. So, like, you know how usually with those sort of knockout games, it can be quite stressful. Last night wasn't stressful, which is so coming into this one thoroughly refreshed. Jude, all good?
Yeah, smashing, lad. Yeah, nothing new to report. Had my little run post-win and... yeah,
break this down for me, Jude. So post Spurs runs, defeats. Are you running away from the defeat?
I mean, every run is running away from a problem in some capacity, isn't it?
This has got deep really quickly.
Well, Sean's not here.
You're literally taking it on for him.
No, today was just another regulation. So trot along the beach, and it's all chill. If they lose, it's straight after full time, like 5K, smash out real quick. But
get over it as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And avoid any chat on Twitter, YouTube, or Match of the Day. And Dan, late night for you, you said.
Bit of a late night, Ben. Thanks for asking. Just the game, the 8 p.m. kickoffs. That's what I said. Thanks for asking.
The late kickoffs, they do knock you for six, don't they? Suddenly you're getting home at like midnight, half midnight.
Well, I had a bit of a disaster because my girlfriend took my keys to work, so I couldn't drive to the game. Domestic shocker. I had to get the train, which feels very kind of otherworldly. It's like now, just so everyone knows, like the only kind of good thing about no fans is that I get to park at the stadium, which is why I want none of you to ever come back. I've just been kind of casually sort of driving up there at every game, and I had to get back on the train like the old days.
It is quite weird getting on public transports now. It's like something a Blade Runner, isn't it? It's all very kind of like dystopian. Three or four other people.
It was terrifying. So I was going out there at rush hour, and the Victoria line was actually quite busy. And
was it?
I've not been around this many people for so long. I don't know what to do.
Getting like weirdly anxious, just sort of sitting there shuffling around.
Are you breathing on me? Are you looking at me?
I'm really going to enjoy when things get sort of closely back to normal, the very British way in which people will see someone not wearing a mask and just be like, oh, they won't say anything, but they'll just tart or breathe really loudly, or maybe make a passing remark to their partner who's on the train. I just don't understand why people can't wear a mask.
Yeah. Very overly loud. Just sort of. I was going to ask Dan, did your partner take your keys so that you couldn't accidentally drive for another reason, though? Because the story didn't get revealed last week, did it?
Oh god, you've got to do it now.
This is referring to Thursday night. I mean, Sean loved this. I don't think it was actually that good a story, but basically this was last Sunday for the Palace game. I accidentally drove to the Spurs training ground instead of the Spurs stadium.
That's quite funny.
I'm sorry, that's good. That's good stuff.
I just hit the wrong favourite on Google Maps, and then normally I'd realise at the beginning of the journey is very similar. From my house, it's pretty much the same route until fairly near the end. And I was like, why is it sending me on the M25 to go to the stadium? This is very confusing. But I just thought, you always just think Google knows something you don't know.
Yeah.
Like Google omnipotent. It must know about some major traffic jam on the A10 that I just have to avoid. And then suddenly I was just at the training ground and I was like, oh, this is not right.
That's so interesting. You said that Google knows something you don't know. I'm constantly trying to prove that man is smarter than AI by being like, nah, I won't take that route. No way. I'm taking a shortcut. And then I eventually sort of realized that there was a road that's blocked off or it's a one-way street. And I'm like, fuck's sake. And then
Google
I'd take
noob.
20 minutes longer getting there
I've,
anyway.
I've fully surrendered myself to Google these days. I
The machines
just
have
trust
won.
whatever it says.
Yeah.
Dan ex machina.
Mm.
Do you know what's really funny is that Sean said on the WhatsApp, and the thing that tickled me was like, there's just this image of you getting out the car at the training ground, just getting out and
the thing is, I didn't realise until I was literally at the training ground. Like that's how long it took me. I was obviously just in a bit of a daze. It was Sunday afternoon. It was Sunday night, in fact. It was that evening. Another wretched evening kickoff. So yeah, it won't happen again.
Yeah, the Sunday. I've got to be honest. The late on Sunday night is. I'm really not a fan of 7:15 Sunday night. Having to watch everyone else play, and then eventually seep through. But having said that, we are very fortunate with that one. I mean, I would watch that game a million times over again. Let's jump into good, bad, ugly, beautiful. So we're gonna go very quickly through this from last night against Zagreb, because we want to talk lots about North London derby and get stuck into that. So we're all going to take one section each. So Jude's going to go first. Tell us the good bits, Jude.
I liked Serge Aurier from last night. I've got my fast talking voice on now, so I'm just trying to go as quick as possible to get onto. But yeah, he's sort of made a quiet return to the team after being out injured, and I thought he was really solid against Palace as well, and didn't let anything past him last night either. Won plenty of tackles and was good in the air, and he's just that he just provides a bit more physicality at right back, and he's sort of quietly having a really decent season. Now he's got a few mistakes out of the way.
Jude, I think he's won me over.
Yeah, I think I'm there too, actually. It's quite scary, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't like saying that out loud. It's like being in a relationship where you're like, you think it's that sort of is going really well, and then you accidentally say something like, "Oh, I love you," and you're like, "Oh God, now it's serious." I'm there with Serge Aurier. If he's not our starting right back for our big games, I'm concerned, and that I think that tells you everything you need to know. Like he's very much our first choice starting right back, isn't he?
Sorry, but don't you think that says more about Doherty?
Yeah, that's
my view, personally.
There was a moment.
Not to be a downer in the good section.
Shit on Aurier straight away.
Yeah, that came around very quickly.
No, I think one, yes, but also there was a moment yesterday when it's probably halfway through the first half, and it might have been Ndombele, it might have been Kane, who looked to play the split pass between the left back and the centre back, and it was Aurier that was overlapping, and I immediately was like, "Oh, Aurier will be there with his pace to get him beyond," and then I was like, "Jesus, I'm actually expectant of him now." And he put in a really great cross into the box, and he also got I know he won't get the assist, but the cross back for Harry Kane's second goal.
Yeah,
I just think he's raised his levels. I think he's now a consistent performer.
Yeah, he's definitely performing at a much higher level than he was in the last couple of years. But let's be really honest, it's not hard to do better than the last couple of years because they weren't great.
We're not giving him it.
I've got PTSD. I will give him everything this season. He's been good. He's been really good in the games that he's played. He's not made nearly as many silly mistakes. His crossing's improving. His positioning's improving. I think confidence is a big part of that. He looks more confident in running beyond the man, knowing the ball will come to him. And then there's just a little asterisk that
you've got scar tissue.
I've got scar tissue. I've been hurt. I've been burnt.
Yeah. Be gentle with me. I bruise easily.
I feel the same as Hunter. He's definitely the first choice. Yeah, I think I don't feel it really any differently about him as I have done for the past 18 months, probably. The whole of Jose, I think he's been kind of decent, but I feel like he does still have a mistake in him. So
are you still the version of Jose standing in the change room and going, "I'm scared of you"?
Yeah, I am that Jose. I am picking him in the team, but telling him beforehand in a really morale-boosting way that I think he's probably going to fuck up.
You are a fucking shit marker.
Jude, any other performers we should be highlighting from last night? By the way,
Harry Kane a little bit.
You're not allowed to say Eric Lamela or Tanguy Ndombele. They've been reserved for later on.
Okay, well, I'll say Kane then, because he scored twice and he was generally pretty good. I don't know if that's going to cause any among the What a Night
we don't
crew,
need to alert the village elders or anything.
Groundbreaking journalism. Harry Kane, we've given him
Decent.
2 thumbs up.
Decent.
That's the player, isn't it? Yeah, he's all right.
Although we should sort of say that the way he created space for the second goal is an elite striker, right? Because he the defenders made the mistake, but then he makes him make another mistake with just a little drag back, push forward in space, through his legs, across the keeper. It's everything right. I imagine there'll be striking coaches out there clipping that and going, that's how we create a yard of space in the area.
Harry Brooks.
And just there is some we probably should be pointing out as well. I mean, he's hit 25 goals for the season again, which is ridiculous, doing it so consistently. He's also now, I think, one of only 6 or 7 players to have scored 10 goals in the calendar year already, which is just amazing. And what still baffles me is that I get tagged so often in posts from BT, ESPN, Sky, who consistently leave him out of any comparative scoring chart for Haaland or any of the other young players coming through.
It's strange, isn't
Harry
it?
Kane out of it.
It's almost because his stats are much closer to those that are coming through. Do you know what I mean? And they want to make the jump look bigger.
I neeked out the other day. They did the I think it was Haaland's the fastest to, was it 10
fastest
Champions League
20.
goals?
20. I think it's 20.
Yeah,
I
20.
seeing it and being like,
so then I was
bullshit.
like, well, I'm going to look it up. And I was like, and I sort of got really flustered and looked it up and then realised everyone had already done it in the comments. But just for my own peace of mind, I was like, come on.
Yeah, because Kane was the holder of that, wasn't he? Until Haaland broke it, Kane was the holder. So it is a weird thing. I think it also comes back to what we were saying about maybe underrated. Maybe it's just that superstar status. He's not very cool. He's not, I think that does come into it a lot of the time. He's not very sexy.
There's also an element of just taking him for granted. And I think that's relevant in regards to last night, because it's easy to just kind of shrug off that level of brilliance, I think, and to be like, oh, it's the Europa League. But it shouldn't be taken for granted, basically, playing like that, not only in front of goal, but just his passing and movement and the way he kind of ran the game from a deep position was just exceptional again. And I think Dinamo were a decent and very feisty side, well organised, technically fine, with a couple of really nice players. And it was a pretty solid, routine, professional win last night. And I'm not sure it would have been without Kane doing what Kane does.
And Dan, I suppose we should also point out as well, just from a leadership point of view, Kane was phenomenal last night, wasn't he? Just any time it felt like Zagreb were getting too much into people, he was the first person there, but also he spent the entire night in the ref's ear as well, making sure that it didn't get too far out of control.
Yeah, and I think we'll come on to that in your section, but it was one of those games like Zagreb were properly up in people's faces, and their bench was pretty animated, and Mourinho got animated in response. So you need that on the field when the opposition's giving it, and Kane's definitely got that in his game. There's not much he doesn't have, and he's more than willing to kind of be a bit gobby when it's called for, I think.
So we're going to move on to the bad, and I'll take the bad section. Just before we do, we should say we haven't forgotten about Soko. We haven't forgotten about Lucas's cameo last night as well. And he has been performing, hasn't he, Dan?
He's probably going to play at 10 in the North London derby, which is why he didn't start last night. And I think it has to be said that that's been a really surprising kind of masterstroke from Mourinho. I think he's getting the best out of Lucas, and I think he just has this kind of crazy unpredictability in that position. You don't really know where his first touch is going to go or what he's going to do. And he's also got that ability to go past people. He can do it in the Premier League as well. He can beat a man or two and win a free kick, which is something that Delhi doesn't really have. He can't beat a man in the same way. And I just think Lucas is working in there at the moment in the league in a way that I never really expected him to. And I think, put it this way, like if the lineup is announced, an hour before kickoff on Sunday, and Lucas is in at number 10, I don't think anyone's heart is going to kind of sink in the way that it might have done, a month or even a few weeks ago. And I don't think there'll be many people, based on kind of current form, who would be upset to see him starting ahead of Delhi or Lamela.
It's hard to put. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the other thing that he adds in there is just he's brilliant at winning the ball back. He's an absolute nuisance because of his centre of gravity and how quick he is. He can get round you and nick the ball really quickly, as he did in the Palace game. But it's just a with Spurs pressing now, which I love, by the way. it just means that he is an
organised press as well.
Yeah, well, I think that.
Yeah,
I know we're trying to skip through this, but I think it should be noted that a few months ago, when we used to trade players in and out of the Europa League team, everything fell apart. Now we've found a cohesive way of playing where you seem to be able to swap players in and out, and there's a style still, at least, and we still have a threat going forward, which we definitely didn't before. So Jose deserves a lot of credit for that, because he's found a style that works, and we've got wins on the bounce now.
So on the bad side, the only bad thing that I've got is that we should have killed this game off. We should have put it to bed. I heard Glenn Hoddle talking post-match, and I think he kind of got it spot on, where he said it's a good result. It's not a great result, because 2-0, the tie is very much up in the air, and it means that we've got to travel with the intention of playing a lot of the big boys, which is frustrating. At least you think at least 5 or 6 of your kind of first team will have to in some way feature in that starting 11 and have an impact to at least 60 minutes. Hopefully they'll go on, they'll score, and it means that Zagreb will need 4 goals to turn it around. But it's frustrating that we're in that position, given that there was a lot of opportunities, wasn't there?
I think you're right. Glenn sort of nailed it last night, and the one that he got right was Gareth Bale. Again, his refusal to use his right foot right at the death. He sort of shapes his body round it. I think it's Bergwijn who dinks it back post, and if Bale leads with his right, wherever it hits his leg, it's going to go back across goal. It's almost, but he tries to get around it with his left and ends up missing the opportunity. If that goes in, yeah, you do think, right, we can really play quite a rogue team, knowing that Zagreb have to come out and have to try and score goals, and will leave massive gaps. And the reason they changed their tactics in the second half was because they wanted to try and stop Spurs getting in behind. Well, the only thing you can say is next Thursday they do have to come out, because they didn't really create anything yesterday, but they have to come out next week. And I do think it's not great that we'll have to play some of the big boys, but I think you can get away with playing Vinicius. I think you can get away with playing Bergwijn, I have to say. So
he's not going to drop Son, is he?
No, he's not.
He's just not going to drop him.
The army man will play forever and always.
It did seem like a team that was like set up to try and win it within 60 minutes. Like Spurs have, in the Europa League, they have gone out and scored like 3-4 within that time frame. And I was, seeing Son and Kane start again, it was very much like, let's try and get the tie won within that time frame. But yeah, a couple of things didn't come off. That and Ndombele penalty wasn't given, despite it being like GBH, which was a bit frustrating.
GBH.
Yeah. But yeah, they'll still have. They should have more than enough to score a couple.
In the ugly, then should we go on to the kind of persistent fouling, Hunter? I think you can take this one.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a way of playing. It's a way of breaking up the game. It's a way of defending. I'm never gonna. I quite enjoy teams that are really physical. I think it's sort of a dying art in a way. But last night, the second half especially, you saw that there'd clearly been a decision to try and sort of get in amongst it, is what the old sort of English coaches would have called it. But just sort of get up in their faces, make everything really difficult for them, pick up the fouls where he can, break up the play, make it really choppy, and then we'll try and get them on the counter-attack. We're going to draw them in, piss them off, draw them in, piss them off. And the player who really took majority of the battering was Tango and Ndombele. But I think he rode it so well, because what he did was, rather than getting all angry, and he doesn't get really angry, he just rode the tackles where he needed to, stayed down, and what it did, it just drained the game for them. It slowed the game down, made it hard for them to sort of get anything together. And the thing was, they weren't getting close to him. They weren't getting close to tackling him. He had a really good game, and he has become a bit of a I don't know. He just seems to draw fat in the same way that Jack Grealish does. He can move his leg in really intelligent ways to sort of protect his body. So you're never getting close to the ball when you think you are. And he does that so well. And I think it's so important for a player in that position to be able to pick up fouls. And so although it was quite ugly in that, you know, there was some rogue tackles going in, and there was quite a lot of words sort of exchanged between the players. You know, that it's just sort of part and parcel of the game, isn't it?
Okay, Dan, take us home. You lucky man, you get to do the Eric Lamela section in the beautiful.
Well, I've spent my career picking up Eric Lamela, so
I love that your two careers are just intertwined since you joined Spurs.
My career is a Lamela enthusiast.
Yeah, like essentially, it's like your calling, your vocation. It's just he arrived at Spurs and you knew it was time.
Not work, it's passion.
You never work another day in your life.
Were you on the Lamela train before he moved to Spurs, Dan? Or was it?
God no, I didn't know who he was.
You weren't watching him at like under-9 tournaments in Argentina and thinking, God, this guy.
I found the clips of him at under-9 tournaments in Argentina. There is a clip of him as a kid doing a Rabona that you can find.
Yeah.
Can tell people that now. That's a good use of your Saturday. But yeah, no, I just thought this is slightly tongue in cheek, but the kind of run before Kane's goal, everything about that move just kind of was characteristic Lamela. You know, he picked up the ball, I think, from Davis and turned, and somehow in the process of turning, kind of stamped on his man who went down in a. Then there was a nice kind of dribble forward, which looked like it was going to have sort of too many touches and end up going nowhere. But then came the ball roll, which took at least one defender out of the game, maybe 1.5. And then suddenly the goal was at his mercy, and all he had to do was kind of side foot it in with his right foot, and it would have been a great goal. But of course, he went outside of his left boot and gave himself a really tough angle. So obviously it hit the post, and then Kane tucked it in. But it was just, you know, everything you associate with Lamela was kind of in that move. So I really enjoyed it, and I thought he was, on a more serious note, I thought he was kind of good again, really. Like he harried pretty well. He made enough of a difference in the final third. He loves the North London derby, so I do wonder whether that he's given Mourinho a bit of a decision to make. He sort of adds similar characteristics to the ones I was talking about with Lucas earlier, in that he's quite unpredictable. He adds intensity. He works really hard, and he can go past people. Not quite at the same speed or rate as Lucas, which I think will give Lucas the edge. But I wouldn't rule out him starting at 10 on Sunday.
Dan, this is slightly off topic, but I turned to someone off the back of that goal yesterday and I said, how many times out of 10 do you think you would score the Harry Kane rebound off the post?
He probably made it look easy. I mean, I need to watch it back. I'm sure he made it look really easy, and it was actually quite tough. I mean, we all know Hunter's giving himself, a very high hit rate.
This
How many Ndombeles?
Ben gave me the Ndombele. I'm not having this. Ben gave me the I said
you asked me to.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, you say 2 for me. I'm kicking that in the goal. I don't care. Yeah, I back myself there.
In the goal hole. No dice.
Right, I'm gonna have a look at it now, and then I'm gonna come back to it. Okay?
by the end of the pod, I'd like to know the percentage. But it was like perfect Lamela, wasn't it? Absolutely magic. And we are seeing, I think we're seeing a lot more of that side of Lamela at the moment. It seems to be getting into a bit of a groove. They asked him post-match whether he felt if he was in kind of the best shape he's been, and he didn't really commit to it. But I definitely think he's in a much better place physically.
Is this the longest he's been uninjured for at Spurs?
It does feel like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, because honestly, I can't remember a season where he hasn't come in at the beginning. Everyone's gone, this is the year. Then he disappears. Basically, not in and out. He's in and out the squad, but there are injuries that are stopping him sort of get a run together. And then, I mean, this is sort of maybe how you have to use him, right? Like incredibly sparingly. he's good in these games, and it's just never gonna go further than that. Dan's
I love
still trying to
that
find
Dan's
out.
just got an advert for Well Woman.
Sorry,
Not even sponsored by them, Dan.
I'm watching the Kane goal.
Yeah.
Amazing. So, I tell you what, let's get on to the North London derby. So let's start with how it's going to play out. Then we'll do our kind of expected 11, and then we'll finish with our all-time favourite North London derby moments.
Right, so I'm going to interject.
Go on.
I'm giving myself. I'm scoring that.
Yeah. Oh yes!
Excellent.
I'll say a modest 6 out of 10. I think I'm more likely than not to put it in, but the keeper does cover.
Keeper does well.
A fair amount of ground, so it's not as easy.
I worry that I shank that. I worry that I just panic.
Head over it, Hazy.
Knee over the ball and it's there.
I'm doing the Lamella and have to take it with my left. No chance
with your
on the
left
right.
foot inside out.
No, I'm gonna have to take a touch as well.
Two defenders back on you by the time you shoot. Right. So, firstly, just Hunter and I did a bit of a chat with an Arsenal fan this morning for his pod. Harry Simeon, who's does a lot of great work on 90 Min as well. And what we kind of reached was this idea that maybe the game doesn't carry as much weight in terms of the league position or kind of like its impact on the league, because of the cups, because of the fact that both teams really need to have an important campaign in the Europa League. Is that sort of fair, Hunter? Is that where we got to?
Yeah, I think that's a good. I think he basically is this the most important game of the season? Probably not, especially with the Carabao Cup and the Europa League still knocking around, and because of the sort of narrative that Mourinho comes with, where it's sort of all or nothing. We need cups. It no longer, whereas in other seasons, the Premier League was the be all end all. It just feels like we need those cup wins. Sorry. But at the same time, we did sort of say all that and then go back to. Yeah, but I want to batter you useless arseless. Yeah.
I want us to absolutely destroy you. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
Well, how do you think it's going to play out, Jude? What have you made of Arsenal recently?
I'm sort of quietly confident just because Arsenal, they have this disaster gene at the moment. Well, I say at the moment, it's been there for a few years, and that's not me just slagging them off, but they do, like, because Spurs make silly mistakes, but Arsenal do it pretty hilariously as well. Mm-hmm. But one of the main reasons why I'm quietly confident is I can sort of see Mourinho's post-match interview where he comes out and a reporter asks if he's shocked that Spurs haven't won there since 2010 or in the league or whatever it is, and he goes, yeah. Well, get used to it. This is how it works.
Yeah.
He's definitely pulling that one out if they do win. Yeah.
What about you, Dan? Nervous at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always a kind of element of trepidation before a North London derby. I mean, my sort of big theory about the North London derby is that the more confident one set of fans should be, based on form and mood at the club, the less confident they should be, if that makes sense. So it always seems to sort of go against the form book. It's one of those derbies that actually really conforms to the cliche, I think. It's rarely about what's come before. And a lot of the time it feels like the side who are expected to win just don't. So on that basis, the count no chickens. But yeah, I agree with Jude. I mean, I think that there is this kind of disaster gene in Arsenal, and I think that their confidence will obviously be quite fragile. Can
I throw out one exception just as to that? Because I 100% agree. Having said that, I did come into the game earlier in the season thinking the exact same thing, and I thought we were so professional in that game.
Yeah, and that's the thing that you kind of. That's where you hope kind of Mourinho can sort of make the difference. I mean, just going back to last night, I mean, I almost feel, I don't know whether this is, reading into it too much or giving Mourinho too much credit, but I mean, that felt like a very kind of professional performance. And, I just wondered whether his experience was a kind of nice factor in that. It seemed like everything went pretty smoothly, and you hope that his kind of been there and done that experience, particularly over Arteta, would kind of mitigate that element of randomness and unpredictability that I just talked about. I think the big question for him, right, is the same one we've had all season, just the same balance issue. It's like, do you sit back and let Arsenal shoot themselves in the foot, which they are the absolute masters of, or do you come at them and try and use Bale, Kane, and so on to just kind of overwhelm them? That is the big question, and both approaches to me actually look pretty sensible.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting, be really intriguing to sort of know how he's going to play.
What would you prefer?
I mean, obviously, I always prefer like going for it and sort of playing to strengths. But you know, if there's one team where you can just kind of sit off them, let them have the ball, and just let Xhaka kick it into the net or something. It's Arsenal, so I totally would understand. I totally understand the kind of lads it's Arsenal. Great reference.
No.
I should not have said that.
I would almost prefer sitting back because of how. Do you remember end of last season when we sat back and beat them 2-0? And do you
David
remember
Luiz
how,
did it for us?
Do you remember how triggered Arsenal fans got by the fact that we actually didn't play any football? We didn't play any football really, and then we just scored 2 goals when they made mistakes. As Dan said, when they decided to make the mistakes, we were there and we scored. I almost find that more fun against Arsenal. Now, battering them 5-6-0 with a really attacking performance, that would be beautiful. But beating them 1-0 where we basically do nothing for 90 minutes, I think I could get on board with that one, just with Arsenal.
Do you know what? I think Dan sort of like eased us into this next bit. Do we feel like the team almost picks itself? I wrote it down yesterday and I was like, I think there's only 2 positions that I'm a little bit unsure of at the moment. And the 2 that I had were the number 10 role and potentially whether Aurier is fit enough to do 2 games in quick succession. But is everyone else kind of in agreement that the rest of the positions pick themselves?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And that's brilliant. That's probably the first time this season, right, where we can go, right, that's the best team, or everyone's fit and we can actually pick the best team. And it's helped the football massively. You know, we're just much better to watch at the moment because of it. And Reguilon's brilliant. So, you know, that's the other side of
that. So then who starts at 10?
I think Lucas, I think you got to play the form players, right? And he is the form player. You know, Dele maybe gets a shout because of how much he turns up in this game. I'm not sure if Mourinho really cares much for that, though. So, yeah, I think Lucas.
And then at right back, fairly confident that Aurier will start?
Yeah, fingers crossed. Don't like Dirty's. We've made our feelings known on Matt Dirty, haven't we? He's
an Arsenal fan as well.
Bit of a tough one, but yeah, he'd probably do a Xhaka and kick into his own net. So.
There would be big chat if there was a mistake from him in the derby.
Yeah. Shall we do
exchanging own goals?
Shall we do our favourite ever North London derby moments? Because I think everyone's probably got one, haven't they? But has anyone got one that they'd like to pop out first?
Well, I sort of put this to Twitter yesterday as a question, just to see what the general consensus was. But mine is Aaron Lennon scoring the 4th in a 4-4 draw at the Emirates. I think we're 4-1 down. You know, it's one of those where half the fans had left. It was a beautiful moment. Luka Modric volleys it from about 30 yards out. It takes a nick. He goes over the keeper, comes out to Lennon, who just slots it home, who goes over to the fans. Fans on the pitch. Harry Redknapp looks like he's about to have a heart attack. It was one of those moments that was like, oh, things are starting to change here. That's what I remember thinking. And I was watching it with a lot of friends. I would have been 16. I was watching it with a lot of friends, all who supported Arsenal. I got jumped big time at full time because I was going, hey, first time in ages we actually got and it was just a moment that has really, really stayed with me from that game. The same year we beat them 5-1 as well, so it's probably a good year.
Bloody good year, that one.
Yeah,
it's the Bentley game, isn't it? Right?
Yeah, it is the Bentley game. The ridiculous volley.
Yeah,
I mean, it had a bit of everything that game. It had a bit of everything.
It did, didn't it? And it the post match as well, which is just lovely. I feel him standing there saying that, "I'm gonna fly home. I feel like Superman." Jude, what's your one?
I'm gonna nick Sean's that he replied to your Twitter post with Hunter, just because it's the first North London derby I went to as a fan. I went to the League Cup game the following season where Matthew Flamley scored twice, so that's the only other one I've been, which is one of the most guff games I've ever seen. Going up there on a Tuesday night and having a look at Fazio play his last game for Spurs wasn't the one. But yeah, it's sort of purely because we had the perfect view for Kane's header. This is the 2015 2-1 win where he scored twice. The one was like a tap in from a corner, and then
you were at that one, Jude.
Yeah. It was like right in the stand. God. Right.
The header.
Yeah, it was a where like the arching one. Yeah, I mean it goes down as that, doesn't it? But it wasn't like it was created by Nabil Bentaleb. It was like Kane has to like jog backwards to get his arch his neck to get on the end of it. But we just had this perfect view from up in the stand of it just coming over David Ospina, who he could just do nothing about it, and then it wheeled away to the opposite corner.
The roar in the stadium must have been amazing.
Yeah, it was such a good vibe.
Go and check out that thread on my feed, because there's James Moore posted from the 5-1 win. He was like, listen to the sound of the crowd when Aaron Lennon's when the fourth goes in, listen to the sound of the crowd. And it's got no commentary on it, which is a blessing because our old commentator, God, the more highlights I was looking at with our old commentator, I was like, God, he's rubbish. No offense if you're listening, mate, but probably found another job now that isn't commentating.
A bit squeaky though, isn't he?
It's just, he had no strength in his voice for it. But the roar of the crowd, genuinely, I got goosebumps, and I was like, God, it's going to be so good having crowds back in for games when we can get them back.
God, that's special, wasn't it? I was literally just sitting there, just thinking about that ball. It was in the air for ages. So it was in the air for so long, but it was just so perfect. Dan, you've got a million to choose from. What's your favourite?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say the same one as Jude and apparently Sean. The 2015 game that just felt not only like a sort of massive win at the time, and one of many moments over the years that you sort of wondered was a shift in the balance of power, but also it felt like the kind of another moment that when Kane sort of truly announced himself as a really special talent. Back then, I mean, that was still in the sort of era of him being called a one-hit wonder and one-season wonder, and you didn't know whether it was just a hot streak. But I think, the way he just kind of took control of that game. And I watched it in Nepal. I was on holiday in Nepal in this kind of bar with like fumes from this generator. Like they have kind of sporadic power cuts in Kathmandu, like different parts of the city like just lose power occasionally, but this bar had a generator to like keep the TV going, and that happened during the game. So it was just it was like diesel fumes everywhere, and I think I was quite delirious, and I was just watching it like, this is great. So that was just a kind of interesting personal memory, but I think that stands out. And then in terms of the 5-1 that Hunter mentioned, I mean, my memory of that game is not feeling like Spurs had won it till literally they'd won it. I mean, to go back to sort of PTSD, there was just so much kind of scar tissue of horrendous collapses against Arsenal, or just sucker punches that as a supporter, watching as a supporter as I was then, like I could not relax until literally the game was over.
That's how I felt against United earlier this season. I'd honestly, the scarring of the 5-3 has ruined me forever and always.
There'll be Spurs fans listening. I imagine we're reaching that point now where there's Spurs fans that now are probably not old enough to remember the fact that Arsenal just in the 90s just destroyed us. We literally couldn't get near to them, and in the early noughties
and
as
the
well.
noughties, like most of the noughties,
And then we had this sort of switch in power, and I remember like a mate of mine used to tell a joke. He used to say that like Dennis Bergkamp says to his mates before playing Spurs, Tottenham are so crap, guys, you might as well all go to the pub and I'll play them on my own. And they're like, yeah, cool, sure, Dennis, you take them on. And then they all go to the pub and they've got the game running on teletext, just the scores running on teletext, the internet of its day. But essentially we just have the scorers and the score, and it's after 10 minutes it says 1-0 Arsenal, Bergkamp, and then it gets to 60 minutes and then it says 1-1 Tottenham, Sheringham, and then it gets to 90+1 and it says 2-1 Tottenham. Sheringham scored the second one. Dennis Bergkamp comes and joins them in the pub, and they said, "Oh, Dennis, what happened?" Then he goes, "Oh, I got sent off in the 61st minute." and it used to absolutely kill me, because like the thing was is that Arsenal fans used to make jokes like that at our expense every single bloody season. So it's such a treat that finally we're at that point where we're starting to look at it the other way.
I've got a real life story that I still am not over, which my dad doesn't know anything about football. Like he does not know anything at all. He's not interested. And sometime in the early noughties, when Arsenal were just dominating Spurs and Spurs were completely in their shadow, and it was kind of Henry and Vieira, blah 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 blah. We had a family party, and my uncle got talking. He's a big Spurs fan and sports fan. Somehow persuaded my dad to put a massive bet on Arsenal beating Spurs, and I was like as a kid, I was incandescent with rage and was like, "You are going to get, you're going to lose all that money." And it was quite a big bet. My dad's never put on a bet before or since about over anything, and Spurs went 1-0 up. I'm going to need to find out what the game is. The Spurs went 1-0 up in the first 5 minutes, and I was loving it. And then Arsenal won like 4-1. I just never forget kind of sitting there and being gleeful at the prospect of my dad being out of pocket, and then him just kind of casually collecting.
Laughing all the way to the bank.
I have definitely got a worst derby moment, which it was on my 18th or 19th birthday, and it was the day after my birthday was North London derby, and my friends had sorted it out so we could go to the Emirates before, go around the changing room, blah, blah, blah. What they didn't tell me is they told the woman in charge of it all that I was an Arsenal fan. So as we got to the stadium and we do all the thing, we're in the change room, we're in the exec box, having a lovely old time. But the game starts, Spurs go 2-0 up, Adebayor and Saha score. And I'm like, God, this is amazing. I'm so hungover as well.
What a day.
Yeah. But I'm in the Arsenal end, so I'm having to sit there very quietly, very smugly, just like glasses on, but wearing a big coat because it's February. And then Arsenal just start scoring goals. I think Robin van Persie started scoring goals. I think it was 5-2 the final score.
Didn't they score from kickoff?
Oh my God, it was pathetic. And we just fell apart. After the game, the woman who's running all comes up to us and is like, got a special thing for you, can come this way. So she takes us all down. And at the bottom of the stairs is just Robin van Persie. And he's like, oh, you can come and sit with us in the players' room. And I was like, oh, and so he's sitting there going, so you're an Arsenal fan? I'm going, yeah, it's great day. Great day.
The moment's pause in your head when you're like, I'm going to have to say yes. I can't do anything.
I cannot say no here. So yeah, but anyway, got to meet Modric and Bale after the game, which as a big Spurs fan, I was very happy with, and yeah, just had
Did you
to
have to tell them you were an Arsenal fan?
No, I'd sort of walked out of the Arsenal bit. But yeah, very awkward.
Oh, amazing. Well, look, fingers crossed. It's more good, positive stories this weekend. And do you know what? I think, like, I remember Gareth Bale's not got an awful record against Arsenal. The moment that I would have picked out would have been the 2-1 where Danny Rose scored, and then I think Bale scored the second, that lovely flick past Chesney. So it'd be lovely to see him do that again. I hope you enjoyed the pod today, guys. Make sure you leave us a review and a rating. If you did, think about subscribing as well. We'll be back again on Monday. We'll be running through the North London Derby, and then, am I right in saying this international break?
So yeah,
No,
we might have to do it.
No, the week after.
Then Europa League,
Villa.
then
Yeah. One more week.
Europa League, Villa, then international break. Right, yeah. So we need to get thinking about another Q&A, don't we? We got
or a very special guest.
Oh, wowzers. Okay. Okay. Right, so we'll leave you stewing on that one. We'll see you all on Monday.
What a feeling, what a night.